Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for joining me on this journey through the constraints-led approach and the ecological dynamics for BJJ. I am Sam Battlefields. Thank you very much for joining me. A while back I did a review of, I think, the first 20% or whatever it was of Kit Dale's task-based games, and while I wasn't particularly, I looked at it through the lens of the constraints-led approach more than what it is. I still found it fairly rudimentary in that, there was some things I got out of it, but I wasn't too impressed with anything that I was getting. But again, I was very conscious of the fact that I was, only 20% into the actual course. I got through a bit more, so I'm currently at 51%. And to be honest, up until about the 40%, the reason I'm using percentages is because that's what it allows me to do. It actually shows how far you're into it. But the next sort of section was positional sparring games, which is literally just what specific training, positional sparring. He calls it generalized positional sparring, and it really is very general. So it's like, for the most part, it was like, get in A guard, so closed, half guard, half butterfly guard, X guard, double unders, outside del lever, inside del lever, Z guard, K guard, single leg X, and literally does a video on all of them. But like the game is sweep submit or escape, and it's like sweep submit or anyway. So it's like, again, I'm not having a go at him for that. But then he goes on to give the two guys that he's with these tips and tricks for their very specific sort of outcomes. And he sort of mentions throughout on a couple of occasions, he's like, but this will be different for you. And it's like, okay. And then we get to the end of the positional sparring games, or what he calls generalized positional sparring for guards. We get to the end of that, and he puts this video on.
As you can tell, you can go on forever with creating these type of games. And I don't need to show you every single type of game, because the point is that you're supposed to practice this, and you're supposed to come up with problems and mistakes in your own jiu-jitsu. What you're seeing here is an example of the way I process it, the way I go through it, but ultimately you have to do it. So we showed you a couple different positions there, but you can also do it from closed guard.
I mean, he literally did it from closed guard. I'll let him talk a little bit more, and
You can do it from every single kind of guard there is. There's new guards being invented all the time. If you're wearing a gi, lapel guard, worm guard.
So in this case, up until this point, at the end of positional sparring games, which is primarily just guards, he's essentially saying, do specific training, get in that guard and play. And that's fine. But it's kind of, the criticism that CLA gets is, well, it's just the same as specific training. And I'm sure he's got that. He's had that criticism leveled at him. Like, well, that's what task-based games are. It's just specific training. And it's like, he's not changing anyone's viewpoint up till the end of this.
And lasso guard, all those kind of positions, you start there and you just try and advance from there.
So start there and just try to advance from there.
And a good way to get very good at it is what I would do is I would start with just holding the position. Okay, let's say we start in half guard. Your goal is just to hold the position.
So here's the thing, right? If he had just gone, okay, here's what I look for when I'm making a game, and then I think one of the issues with selling a course like this, you have to show some sort of value, right? Especially when you're charging as much as Kit does. So you've got to show that there's fucking 50 odd videos, and it's like, there's 50 odd videos here. So and all the way through it, I'm giving these tidbits of information that will help if you watch the video and you have the very specific issue that my two training dummies, I'm not saying they're dummies, but training partners, they have these very specific issues that have arisen in front of me, and I'll address them, and then I'll teach them like it's a lesson. But it's like, if you don't have a coach there identifying what the issue is, then some of it, you could be playing around for ages, for hours. It's literally specific training without a coach sort of thing. I'm not saying I can do any better, alright? I'm just saying that the task-based games, so up until this particular video, how to create new games in the course, and I'm not going to show any of the course other than this, but I'll let him finish, because he does make some decent points. And if he actually had created, as I said, the problem with, I think, the problem with sort of giving your breakdown as to how to create new games, is that you kind of take away the value of what you are in the equation. And I think that's one of the biggest issues that us as CLA-based coaches might have, is that we can we won't be able to make money online like this, because the more granular you get, a complete beginner can get granular. Well, not a complete beginner, but someone with 6 months training can get granular with this. And anyway.
His goal underneath is to escape, or the same thing from Z guard, and all those kind of positions. Hold those positions from on top, from underneath, so that way you can understand how to hold the position, and then you can start attacking and advancing from there. But my point is, there's no point in just going through every single position and showing you what happens, because ultimately the most important part is what happens when you do it.
So yes, but he's like, there's no point in it, and yet he went through 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, literally 10 plus positions with 10 plus videos doing exactly that.
What mistakes do you have, and how are you going to fix those mistakes? That is the most important ingredient. If you rely on me doing it with these guys, you're going to see a couple of lessons that are happening within 30 seconds or a minute of rolling.
That's exactly what we're seeing, right? In this particular portion.
But what I want to see is what happens with you after 30 minutes of doing this, after 3 or 4 weeks of doing this, after a year of doing this. The difference in your game and the areas that you're going to uncover and the steps that you're going to figure out.
So this is where I don't agree with him saying, well, I don't agree with the idea that you can then discover all your issues and then figure it out yourself, right? It's a hard one, but having someone there to go, hey, like, instead of what Kip does in this, which, you know, you said before, you'll see these issues that unfold within these, like, a little instruction for the issues that these guys have had. You'll get, like, without a coach there to go, hey, you know, maybe sort of place your attention on getting your head in closer, or, you know, something like that.
Problems you're going to solve are going to be so much greater than what you're actually seeing here. Otherwise, this would be a 200-hour long product of showing you exactly the way they go. But everyone's a little bit different. Everyone's shaped a little bit different. So your tree branch diagram of where you're going to go is going to be very different to what you see here. So
there's still a mentality of systemization, like tree branching, that sort of thing, which I think starts to dissipate when you do the CLA approach, like when you do CLA, because concepts of control are universal, and so you start feeling them everywhere.
So most importantly, make sure that you practice these games. Start from every single position you know. Learn to hold the position. Then start there and learn to advance the position. And then look at little things in between those games.
So here's the thing, right? He's like, look at little things in between those games. That's exactly what the CLA stuff is, all right? And the fact that he's basically now, like, at that point about 40% into his instructional, and he's saying this now.
For example, let's say, let's go to half guard.
And then he just reverts back to, let me show you a position where I can kind of show you what I mean by this. I'm not going to show you the instructional because that's his, but like, everything here, like, you could pretty much in this sort of, what is it, 2 minutes and 18 seconds, you pretty much could have summarised what's happened so far, right? Now, on the flip side, I did positional sparring games from stand-up, and he got granular on this, and it became very much a CLA, a number of CLA games. I'm starting to, you know, on the stand-up side, I'm starting to realise that, you know, he's taken, he's looking at stand-up as in there is these individual components of the stand-up game that need to be focused on, and he's broken it down into that. And so I'm about 50% in of the positional sparring games from stand-up, and they're actually a lot closer to what CLA would be for these games than anything prior to this. So I'm actually, like, there's a couple of ones in here that I've used, but I created them myself, you know, brush my shoulders off. There's a couple that I sort of created myself, and they were great, and I see them here, and I'm like, oh yeah, that's cool, and maybe that's why I'm giving this section props. But he's giving specific tasks, right? So he's actually doing specific tasks for this. So it's like, you know, if you have this, then the person is trying to hold on to that, and the other person is trying to get away from that. And then he even says, like, you know, you can actually see openings for taking the back and that sort of thing. But for this game, what we're looking to do is just secure control. That is actually really good. So I'm, as I said, I'm about halfway through those. And I'm halfway through the entire course. I wanted to give an update. I actually did an update yesterday, but I wasn't as vibrant as I am today. I thought I'd just let that out for you all. I had a good roll this morning, no lesson this morning because it was just me and Aaron, and we went through a couple of leg lock sort of things, and just sort of prepared the session for tomorrow. And then we had a really good roll. It was a really good roll. I was trying so much new shit. Like, it's awesome now. Like, I don't give a fuck what I'm trying. Right? I'm really, like, I'm trying as much as new stuff as I can. Like, it's awesome. And, like, you know, in the end, I, you know, been working on leg locks. I saw this unconventional entry to a leg lock, to a double lashy, and I fucking took it. And not only did I take it, but I ended up getting a heel hook, and, like, it was like being in the Matrix. Like, not in the Hendrick Tate version of the Matrix, but, like, I'm just, like, perceive, act. It's fucking awesome. And I, you know, there's no thinking in between. And I love that, you know, because it just lets all the endorphins flow, and I just feel good, smart, on top of the world. So, looking forward to tomorrow's lesson. It should be a good one, and I'm looking forward to the rest of the lesson. There's a couple of things on the horizon, guys, with what will happen to my workshops at the gym and that sort of thing. I'm hoping that I get to still spread my wings somewhere, anywhere. There's some cool stuff happening in the wings, and I'll let you guys know more about that as we go along. Anyway, like, comment, subscribe. If you've got any questions, let me know in the comments below. I'm keen to answer them. We've got Scott Seavright from Primal MMA, or Primal Milwaukee, and the Primal MMA podcast. I'm so keen for this. I've got a heap of questions, but I've also got some cool things just to wrap with him on. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that chat, and I shall see you tomorrow.